Hello. Welcome to Dan Wu. The Hoi 4. And the reason why I said Dan Wu was because I listened to one of my earlier ones. I listened to a Yan Wu today, and I realized that they used the same story, you know. And the Hoi used the same story, and how in the translator about the author, Yan Wu spoke to Dahoy about his vines and tree, and he spoke of that to others, and you see that's why I'm entirely convinced that all these, there's a thread here, and all these people are connected. And we're not talking about some mystical woo, it's the lineage. It's just, and this is what I like to discover. I like to discover who said what to who kept the story going, and did they interpret the story the same way? Did they use it the same way? Did it point to the same moon? Anyway, these are the things I think about. And one of the things I'm thinking about is my next book. Well, my next book will be a fiction book for the children, but my next Zen book will probably be Lin Chi. I don't want to confuse us with the 5 houses of Zen yet, and Lin Chi will represent the first of the books that I will read to you that sound like Zen. And if you can handle the books that sound like Zen, then by the time we get to the Treasury Eye, the Blue Cliff Record, and the Book of Serenity, you'll have an understanding of how Buddhist language or Chan language worked, or you'll even be very familiar with the teachers themselves, and may even have your own little characterization that'll help you understand what things they saw when they compiled the teachings. This is my fantasy. I can have it. It doesn't harm anyone. Let's begin. I'm so thirsty. In the old days, the military commander, Li Wen-ho, studied with the Chan master Tse-ung of Zhu Chao at Shi-min, and awakened to the essence of the Lin Chi school. He had a verse which said, "To study the path, one must be an iron man, to get hold of the mind and settle the issue immediately, directly seizing supreme enlightenment. Don't concern yourself at all with wrong and right." How marvelous these words are. They should be considered an aid for making the seeds of illumination unfold their potential. Buddha is the medicine for sentient beings. Once the disease of sentient beings is removed, the medicine has no further use. If the disease is removed but the medicine kept, though you enter the realm of enlightenment or Buddhahood, you are unable to enter the realm of delusion, Mara. There's a footnote, but we'll get to it in a minute. This disease is equal to the disease of sentient beings before it is removed. When the disease is cured and the medicine removed, both Buddhahood and deluding influences are swept away entirely. Only then will you have a little bit of accord with the causes and conditions of this great matter. Mara is a personal name, or as a personal name, refers to the Lord of the Heavens of Desire, the Killer. Taken from Sanskrit into Chinese, it took on a wider meaning of demon, devil, nuisance, hindrance. Anything that becomes the object of craving, anger, or confusion can be Mara. Thus, when Huayin scripture includes among deluding influences good faculties, states of concentration, the spiritual friend and guide, and even the knowledge of the truth that comes with enlightenment, when these become objects of clinging the learner is unwilling to part with, they become Mara. That means all your false gurus can stop sucking your own dicks, okay? Thank you, false gurus. Goodbye. I'm sorry. No, I am not sorry. You know I'm not sorry. I talked to whoever I want. That was the Buddha who talked. It wasn't me, okay? Oh, jeez, like, learn my voices, alright? All my friends tell me I got, like, 15 personalities. I'm sorry. I had to run away a lot as a child. Oh, anyway, we're supposed to be serious here. Serious. Oh, hello, new viewer. I'm not always like this. Buddhas are those who have comprehended and completed things in the realm of sentient beings. Sentient beings are those who have not comprehended and completed things in the realms of Buddhas. If you want to attain oneness, footnote, just give up both Buddhas and sentient beings at once. Then there is no comprehend and completed, or not comprehended and completed. Oneness or one suchness, see on page 86 somewhere, when we get to it. We're only on page 17. An ancient worthy said, just perceive nothingness in the midst of things. When seeing form and hearing sound, don't be blind and deaf. This man knew the truth, that the contrivances of the worldly are empty, false, and unreal. When he was faced with situations and circumstances as they suddenly popped up in front of him, he didn't go along with them, so they were taken under control by him. In general, since time without beginning, you have overdone the familiar and left undone the unfamiliar. Even though you may see through it for a moment, in the end, your power in the path cannot overcome the power of your acts, karma. And what is the power of acts? It's what's familiar and stale. And what is the power of the path? It is what is unfamiliar and fresh. Basically, however, there is no fixed measure to power of the path and power of acts. Just observe whether or not you are befuddled in the conduct of your daily activities. When you becloud the power of the path, then it is overcome by the power of acts. When the power of acts prevails, then you get stuck everywhere you go. When you get stuck everywhere you go, then you become attached everywhere. When you get attached everywhere, you consider misery to be happiness. This is why Shakyamuni said to the kindly one, foremost among his chief disciples in expounding the Dharma, you use the characteristics matter and emptiness to overturn and eliminate each other in the repository of thusness. And the repository of thusness, accordingly, becomes a matter or emptiness, extending everywhere throughout the cosmos. For this reason, within it, the wind stirs, and the air clears, and the sun is bright in the skies, and the clouds are dark. End quote. Sentient beings, stifled by delusion, turn their backs on enlightenment and join the dusts, thus giving rise to sensory affliction and the existence of worldly forms. These are the ones who dim the power of the path and are overcome by the power of their actions. Old Shakyamuni also said, I formed the repository of thusness with subtle illumination that has neither destroyed nor born, and the repository of thusness is only the illumination of the supreme enlightenment shining throughout the whole cosmos. This is why, within it, the one is infinite and infinity is one. Why the great appears within the small and the small appears within the great. The innumerable field of enlightenment pervades all worlds in all directions, and one's body contains a limitless space in all directions. On the tip of your hair, you manifest the Lord of the Jewel King, and sitting within an atom of dust, you turn the great wheel of Dharma. This is not dimming the power of the path in one's activities and mastering the power of actions. This is not. Okay. Nevertheless, both are ultimately empty falsehoods. If one abandons the power of actions to grasp the power of the path, then I would say that this person does not understand the skill and means of all the Buddhas in expounding the truth as appropriate to the occasion. Why? Have you not read, and I'm not going to speak in his voice, how old Shakyamuni said, if you cling to the truth aspect, you are attached to the self, personality, living beings, and life. If you cling to the non-truth aspect, you are attached to self, personality, living beings, and life. Therefore, you should not cling to truth, Dharma, and you should not cling to what is untrue, a-Dharma. This is what I said before, that basically the power of the path and the power of actions have no fixed measure. If you are a real man of wisdom, you will use the power of the path as an instrument to clear away the power of habitual action. Once the power of actions has been cleared away, the path too is empty and false. Thus it is said, the Buddha only uses provisional terms in guiding sentient beings. Before you've managed to see through it, you're beset with countless difficulties. After you see through it, what difficulty or ease is there? As layman Pges said, the capacity of ordinary people's will is meager. Falsely they say there is difficulty and ease. Detached from form, empty as space, you reach complete accord within the wisdom of the Buddhas. I'm not going to read the footnotes, sorry. The form of discipline, too, is empty as space. Deluded people consider themselves as upholding it, unwilling to pull out the root of the sickness. They just fool with the flowery branches. End quote. Do you want to know the root of the sickness? It's nothing else, just this clinging to difficulty and ease, arbitrarily giving rise to grasping and rejection. If this root of disease is not entirely extirpated, you will afloat and sink in the sea of birth and death without ever getting out. As soon as the source of the sickness was pointed out to him by an old adept, Chang Cho, the famous scholar in the olden days understood enough to say, trying to eliminate passion aggravates the disease. Rushing towards suchness is also wrong. There is no obstruction in worldly circumstance according to one's lot. Nirvana and birth and death are equally illusions. If you want to cut directly through, don't entertain doubts about Buddhas and ancestral teachers, or doubts about birth and death. Just always let go, and make your heart empty and open. When things come up, then deal with them according to the occasion. Be like the stillness of water, like the clarity of a mirror, so that whether good or bad, beautiful or ugly, whichever these approach, you don't make the slightest move to avoid them. Then you will truly know that the mindless world of spontaneity is inconceivable. Number 10. Lecture at the request of Wei-Ch'aing. Do you want to know what the truth is? It's true thusness, Buddha nature, enlightenment, nirvana. Do you want to know what the disease is? It's arbitrary conception, inverted thoughts and perceptions, or inverted thoughts and inverted perceptions, greed, hatred, erroneous views. Even so, apart from the inversions of arbitrary conceptions, there is no truly so Buddha nature apart from greed, hatred, and erroneous views, and there is no enlightenment or nirvana. But say, is it right to separate them? Or is it right not to separate them? If you separate them, keep one and get rid of the other, then the disease becomes even worse. If you do not separate them, this is truly presuming on the Buddha nature and confusing truth thusness. In the end, how can one expound a principle whereby the disease is removed, but the truth is not removed? Some folks hear such talk, immediately say, well, the truth itself is the disease. The disease itself is the truth. There is only verbal expression, no real meaning at all. Go along with the truth thusness, and then invert it. Arbitrary conceptions, greed, hatred, and false views are all the truth. If you go along with error, then truth thusness, Buddha nature, enlightenment, and nirvana are all disease. That's what they say. With such an understanding, don't say that you wear the patchwork robe. You are not even fit to be a lecturer's servant. Why? You should know that on the level ground the dead people are countless. Obviously, those who can pass through the forest of thorns are the adepts. The level ground is emptiness. The forest of thorns refers to delusion. Haven't you seen the saying of the man of old, which I believe is Linchi? Even if there were something surpassing nirvana, I would say that it too is like a dream, an illusion. If in the midst of a dreamlike illusion you are unable to witness it as it really is, to understand it as it really is, to work on it as it really is, and to act on it as it really is, then you can use the method of according with reality to subdue yourself, and arousing an attitude of great compassion. Create all kinds of skillful expedients whereby you can also subdue all sentient beings. And yet, you entertain no notions of subduing or not subduing towards sentient beings. You entertain no notions of erroneous imagination, nor of greed, hatred, or false views. You entertain no thoughts of truth thusness, Buddha nature, enlightenment, or nirvana. You entertain no thoughts of removing the disease without removing the truth, nor of keeping one and getting rid of the other, nor of separating or not separating them. Once you no longer have any such conceptions, then the one path is clear, the even sameness of liberation. Number 11, illusion. Speaking of empty illusion, it is illusion when created, and illusion when experienced too. It's illusion when you're knowing it aware, and illusion when you're lost in delusion too. Past, present, and future are all illusions. Today, if we realize our wrong, we take an illusionary medicine to cure an equally illusionary disease. When the disease is cured, the medicine is removed, and we are the same person as before. If you think that there's someone else or some special doctrine, then this is the view of a misguided outsider. Like my particular false guru friend. Videos. In the instant of Maitreya's finger snap, Sudhana was even able to forget the meditative states fostered by him by all of his teachers. Hey, I had a bookmark. I guess that's where I was. I knew I read some of this before. I was like, I didn't record that. How much more so the beginningless habit energy of empty falsehood and empty deeds. If you consider the mistakes which you have committed in the past as real, then the world right in front of you now is all real, and even official position, wealth and status and gratitude and love are all real. Dealing with situations. Since we parted, I don't know whether or not you can avoid being carried away by external objects in your daily activities as you respond to circumstances. Whether or not you can put aside your heap of legal documents as you look through them. Whether or not you can act freely when you meet with people. Whether or not you engage in vain thinking when you're where it's peaceful and quiet. Whether or not you are truly investigating this matter without distracted thoughts. Thus old Yellowface, Buddha, has said, when the mind does not vainly grasp past things, does not long for things in the future, and does not dwell on anything in the present, then you fully realize that the 3 times are all empty and still. But you shouldn't think about past events, whether good or bad. If you think about them, that obstructs the path. You shouldn't consider future events. To consider them is crazy confusion. Present events are right in front of you, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant. Don't fix your mind on them. If you do fix your mind on them, they'll disturb your heart. Just take everything in its time, responding according to circumstances, and you'll naturally accord with this principle. Unpleasant situations are easy to handle. Pleasant situations are hard to handle. For that which goes against one's will boils down to one word: patience. Settle down and reflect a moment, and in a little while it's gone. It's pleasant situations that truly give you no way to escape. Like paragliding and iron, unconsciously this and that come together in one place. Even inanimate objects are thus. How much more so for those acting in ignorance, with their whole beings making a living within it. In this world, if you have no wisdom, you will be dragged unknowingly and unawares by that ignorance into a net. And once inside the net, won't it be difficult to look for a way out? This is why an early sage said, having entered the world, leave the world completely. This is the same principle. In recent generations, there have been a type who lose track of expedient means in their practice. They always consider acting in ignorance to be entering the world. So, then, they think of a forced pushing away as the act of leaving the world completely. Are they not to be pitied? The only exceptions are those who have pledged their commitment, who can see through situations immediately, act the master, and not be dragged in by others. Once Vamalakriti said, for those with the conceit of superiority, falsely claiming attainment, the Buddha just says that detachment from lust, hatred, and ignorance is liberation. For those with no conceit of superiority, the Buddha said that the inherent nature of lust, hatred, and ignorance is identical to liberation. If you could avoid this fault, so that in the midst of situations favorable or adverse, there is no aspect of origination or demise, only then can you get away from the name conceit of superiority, applied to someone who thinks he has attained but hasn't. Only in this way can you be considered to have entered the world and be called a man of power. What I'm talking about thus far is all my personal life experience. Even right now, I practice just like this. I hope that you will take advantage of your physical strength and health, and also enter into this stable equilibrium. Okay, that's good for tonight.